It's Maestro. It's October Red. It's Base the Kid. We're here. How you doing today?
All
Very
for
well, Danny.
cuatro.
Fire intro as always. So real quick, we were actually talking about Shannon Sharp behind the scenes, and it was a pretty much, I think, a consensus that this guy's messed up his career. He's in the sports YouTubing space like we are. I used to really look up to the guy, but I don't know. Just speaking for myself, it hasn't been a good last couple weeks for Mr. Sharp, and I was a big fan.
Yeah, it's likewise, from the Skip Bayless, we thought he got done dirty and he used to give really good takes, talking about, stuff for the power for the people and that. Moved over, got a bring in from his brother, Stephen A. Smith. I know people have things to say about Stephen, but hey, he picked up a brother when a man got thrown under the bus and Shannon's fumbled the ball. Pardon the pun.
Yeah, big time. But there have been other calamities recently in the sport, and I'm sure we're going to get into it. October, you're going to lead us off here?
Yeah, well, no, I was actually going to wade in on the Shannon Sharp thing, because
Okay.
it's just an interesting topic. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
said it was more exciting to talk about than the boxing in the US at the moment. Sorry, Maestro. Um,
Well,
but
I am in Vegas to see Inaway. That's technically in the U.S., so I'm looking forward to that
it
later tonight.
is Inouye, who is Japanese. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Yes.
It was a double whammy this weekend. Obviously, late shows, so I didn't watch them live because I was asleep. We started off with the first one that was over in the US, New York, Times Square, locked off, 300 guests only for those that tried to get in. I heard that there was a bit of a commotion. People were, I don't know, flying in or whatever. I think, Maestro, you can weigh in on that. Um,
Absolutely.
where people were turning up and they couldn't get in. But the general consensus was it's locked down, it's intimate, it's out in the open, but it's intimate and only 300 people could go.
Yeah. So real quick on that one. This big fight card was planned in New York City for this past Friday night. The main event was obviously featuring Rolley Romero taking on Ryan Garcia for a WBA Reggie belt at 147. I thought they got rid of the Reggie belts, the regular belts, but apparently they're being brought back. That's probably another discussion topic. But they had essentially put up a ring in the pedestrian only area of Times Square and
Okay.
kind of barricaded it. They put up visual barriers, so they put materials on the fence so that people walking by couldn't see through. I'm sure they had legitimate reasons to do all of that. A lot of people, though, were expecting it to be like the artistic renderings that were sent out, that kind of resembled, I would say, New Year's Eve in New York City, where the whole area is blocked off, everything becomes pedestrian, and people can stand wherever they want and watch the event. I actually watched it from home. The credential stuff was sent out very late in the week. In fact, um, on Friday, pretty much. And I knew I was traveling here to Las Vegas Saturday. I'll be heading back to New York right after the fight to be at work tomorrow morning. But the consensus was that people would probably be able to see the action somewhere around the ring, somewhere. And it didn't turn out like that. I run an amateur boxing club through USA Boxing. I know other people do as well, and invitations were sent to people that run amateur boxing clubs, telling them that they'd have special locations to watch the fight. They got down there. A friend of mine actually got down there way before a lot of other people did, and he saw really quick that they weren't going to be able to watch the fight at all. So he went home to watch the fight. So a lot of amateur boxing club people went down there and found out that there were no spaces for them. So all in all, yeah, I think it's a mix of the messaging not necessarily being perfect, people assuming things to be the case that
Yeah.
weren't the case, and a lot of disappointment. And it didn't help matters that the three fights weren't really that great. We had a shock in the main event, Ryan losing after being knocked down by Rolley. not just losing, but like being comprehensively outboxed by Rolley. You couldn't really give Ryan very many rounds. Rolley was beasting him with the jab. He was feinting. He was changing levels. He looked more powerful in there. He definitely looked more confident. But
Powerful.
the other two fights weren't very good at all. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. But to me, the worst fight of all was the Devin Haney uh, Jose Carlos Ramirez fight. I mean, it was awful. They set a record for the lowest number of punches, I believe, thrown or landed in the 12-round fight. And each of them had fights without landing a single punch at all. I mean, each of them had rounds. So there you have it. And I'm sure we'll get into Canelo's fight last night as well.
Yeah, I'm
Who's
going to
next?
sit this one out. Yeah, whoever it goes, I'll sit this one out.
Not surprising. I don't blame you. But yeah, look, it was a very. I mean, to be look, the decent thing is it started somewhat early compared to normal. So 10 o'clock start was finished by about 2:30 ish, 2:45, which is pretty good going for a US based card. But yeah, look, I think if I'm going to be honest, the best fight of the night was the policeman and the fireman.
Serious?
That at
Yeah,
least had
yeah, it
some
was.
that at least had some intrigue to it. Uh, Look, Teofimo Lopez, I need to give him some credit because he proved me wrong and proved that he does still have some ability or that he's not um, this fraud that I really believed he was. But also, Arnold Barbosa just confirmed to me what I always believed about him, that he's trash. And finally, I guess he just wasn't able to make someone look as trash as he is in the ring. Tio didn't do anything spectacular, but just the extra athleticism was the benefit, and Arnold obviously made him look better by trying to come forward, where usually it would have been easier for him to hang back and make Tio have to try a box on the back foot, on the front foot, because that's when he's not good. But look, that was unanimous decision, correct results, 116, 112. Devin Haney and Jose Ramirez was again a very, very awful fight. But on this one occasion, I'm giving Devin a small amount of grace and I'm reserving judgment until his next fight because he has been out of the ring a year, has had to deal with all of the, you know, the social media stuff and basically everyone clowning and disrespecting him, even though he wasn't the one that done anything wrong.
Mhm.
So maybe mentally he's still not in a great place, and is very, maybe probably a bit gun shy. So I want to see what the next performance is like before I cast any further judgment on him. But I am looking. The magnifying glass is there, and I am ready to inspect or to cook with the sun if it continues that way in the next one. Jose Ramirez he's a shot fighter at this point. There's nothing left for him. He can't pull the trigger. Can't get down really to 140 anymore. 147, he just looks like a plodder. Yeah, that was just not a great advertisement for him. And in the main event, look, Ryan Garcia. I'm gonna say it. I don't care if anyone else wants to agree. Now we see the difference between
Yeah,
him on the substances and him not on the substances because
yeah.
he looked number one. He looked horrendous. He didn't look checked in. He let someone as much as okay. Rolly Romero's got some improvements. Been training with Ishmael Salas. He's still not a good boxer. He still the footwork was still sloppy. The stance, the construct, everything was just unorthodox as normal. The only difference and the only, I guess, benefit you saw, and the one thing that shows you how trash Ryan Garcia really is, all that Romero had to do was just keep that hand glued to the chin all night. That's all he did,
The
and
whole
and Ryan Garcia had no answer for it. So um, I guess look, shout out to Oscar De La Hoya. I bet there won't be no clapback Thursday this week with you going 0-3 on your own show. But yeah, look, it was a turd, it was a dud. Even the main event when it thought it would spring into action after the knockdown, it was just more of the same. Rolley did just enough basically to stay ahead of Ryan every round, and yeah, it was 4 hours. I can't get back, and I'm not happy about it.
Mhm. Deep. Yeah, I kind of have to second on that with base. The James Janali versus Joe Allen was fight of the night on Friday. Um,
That's insane.
yeah, I got back from the cinema.
A 3 round amateur fight.
Yeah, yeah, got back from cinema watching Sinners, great movie. So tuned in, saw that, and then went on, and then it was Lavelle Whittington versus Reito Tsutsumi, and then yeah, Devin Haney just proceeded like I know people talk about Floyd in the past. Oh, Floyd running. No, this was running. This he was fighting like a shookhead. He was moving. He was moving like a PH. He was moving like a PH round the ring. He didn't want to engage.
Wow.
He didn't want to throw no punches. I'm like, you've got the bag. You're on a Riyadh season card, and you don't look like you want to fight. I think it's like a phrase I remember Carl Froch saying back in the day when he used to box on BBC about the England football team. I think I think with some of these American boxers, they are overpaid, overpraised, and underworked. Yes, yeah, you want to get your worth, but these man ain't don't seem like they want to fight. Like you go back to last week, people talking about Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn, they're not world championship material and etc. Well,
Yeah.
people talking about guys like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tiafimo is meant to be part of the Fab Four. This come on, Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Roberto Duran, Thomas Hearns. They're like, are you insulting me? Are you insulting? Like, come on, Devin Haney. I know he's probably gun shy, but he definitely one he needs his confidence back. Two, I'll go out and say this. I know he's been working in Big Bear with Shane Mosley recently. I'm actually glad that Tunde didn't take this gig. Of yeah, Big Bear.
Imagine.
That was a serious top De La Hoya Trinidad. I'm glad Tunde didn't take this gig. I know he was meant to, but
Mm-mm.
had this he'd been done this performance, everyone would have been quick to slate
Yeah.
Tunde after Tunde had actually got Yard to put in his best work rate performance to date. So it wouldn't have even correlated with people would have been. But look at Devin; he's not even throwing no punches and stuff. But in Yard, he's got himself a new strength and conditioning coach, and he won the fight on work rate. Where Devin is just literally track starring around the ring, just moving like a shookhead, like he don't want to fight. Shannon Briggs was like, these men don't want to fight. Then you've got Teofimo Lopez versus Barboza. Fair enough. Teofimo did what he needed to do. As Bay said, Teofimo's good when he can counter you, kind of like when he let Lomachenko come to him. But then when he was like trying to chase after George Kambosos, we saw he got countered, he got dropped, blah, blah, blah. So really, you should know the blueprint. Even when he fought Sandor Martin, who's a counter puncher, that he struggles when he's got to come forward. He's not good on the front foot. Kind of like Eubank Senior was never good on the front foot. He used to always sort of fall over himself. So he like you to come to him and say he can counter you
What
up.
you want? Yeah.
Yeah. And then you had Jose Ramirez. I thought he was shot from Latino night. I'm surprised he's even still made it this far, like going on and on, like because he just looks shot to me already. But and then Devin just moving like a shookhead, just terrible. Ryan Garcia, his body, his frame, you could tell he's off the stuff. He's you're getting dropped by Rolley. But he's massive though. He's got
Yeah,
massive
look big.
massive legs. He always has, but
He's bulk. He's bulked up. He's bulked up to make 147.
yeah, but he's always looked hench. Like even when he was in with Tank, but even with 147, he packs the muscle on very well. So he dropped Ryan Garcia, and yeah, it wasn't a good fight. Weren't a good show. I wish that I did miss the show because I had work in the morning and
Mm.
I ended up
Shattered Saturday morning.
mash up myself for nothing. Like it was terrible.
Imagine me having to get up at 4 to catch a flight to Vegas Saturday morning. It was horrible.
Yeah,
But Danny, let me ask you this, right? Because Hitchens is fighting Gambosis in New York on June 14th. Hitchens is a champion at 140.
Excuse me.
Teo's talking about moving up to 147 for a boots fight that I don't know if it's there or not. You got Teo, who's originally from Brooklyn.
Mm.
Hitchens, who's from Brooklyn. They're both champions at 140. What kind of shot do you give Teofimo against Hitchens? Should Hitchens beat Gambosis, which I think a lot of people are expecting him to?
Hmm. Um. Well, he has a shot. Tio's always got a chance because he is inconsistent, but when he's on form,
Yeah.
he is on form. Like he can look $1 million and pull out $1 million performance, but then he can also, flop you when you put some money on him, and you're like, how did you lose to this man? Or how did you just about get past this man? So it literally, I hate that term when people go, oh, it depends what version of him turns up. But with Tio, when you look at his record, it literally is which version of him turns up as to whether he will win or not.
Yeah, I just see him struggling to kind of walk to uh, Hitchens aggressively and kind of disarm him. But it would definitely be a chess match type of fight for I wouldn't say for the casuals, but more for the guys that like that kind of fighting.
I'm
Yeah,
more thinking about the money that was invested because we had a fantastic Ring magazine debut in the UK
Oh yeah.
with Eubank Junior versus Conor Ben. Beautiful fight, really good card. Like I said, there was only one fight on there that I wasn't particularly keen on, but the rest of them were really enjoyable fights. And then to go over to New
Hmm.
York to get those names, when you look at it, those are names. The only one that was missing was Javante Davis and maybe Shakur Stevenson, but the names were on the card and it just really didn't deliver. So I'm trying to think, am I being biased because the week before was so fantastic and it's in the UK and they're UK fighters? And then maybe I just feel it because I'm, not as much as an American boxing patriot as I am a UK one. Am I being a bit unfair? But the general consensus is it was poor compared to the week before. And
Even if
that's what
you
we
are being
operating on
unfair,
comparisons.
even if you are being unfair and biased, you're still correct. Both things can be correct at the same time.
Mm,
It was bad, but yes, you are biased to the UK stuff.
yeah, that's
But
fine.
you're not wrong. You're not wrong, October, because guess what? The UK matchup had a lot of history and
Mm.
had a lot of bad blood. If they wanted to replicate that, they should have just gone straight to Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia in the main event. There would have been a lot of bad blood and there would have been some history, not Ben versus Eubank history, but still history because of everything that happened last year. But they decided to put on these kind of tune up fights. And we've seen it in the past in boxing. Like you pair up guys anticipating or expecting them to win or even look good and win against their opponent to then go to the next stage and take on the opponent you actually want them
Yeah,
to, and
historically,
things
Mon.
go wrong. They should have, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was about to say, historically that His Excellency doesn't do that. He puts you in. That it would have been Haney
Right.
versus Garcia. So it makes me think, what was the influence around the matchmaking? Because I know
I don't,
when he puts cards on, it's cards that you're thinking, you know what? Okay, let's have it. And it just seems maybe I don't know what was his
Someone
input
asked
this
for a
time.
tune-up. They said that.
Okay,
We don't know which. They
right.
didn't confirm who it was, but one of them
okay.
asked for a tune-up.
Well, that's the thing. They didn't have to give that someone a tune up. That was number one. The second problem was with the venue, right? Times Square. If you're not gonna have a big audience, right, and have fans watching it in a controlled zone where you stop traffic and the streets are essentially closed to pedestrian traffic, I mean, they could have picked another venue. They could have done it on Ellis Island. They could have done it by the Statue of Liberty, right? If you're just going to do a closed event for VIPs and like you want iconic shots, I don't really understand the decision to go to Times Square this particular way. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me. In addition to what you were saying about the main event being a dud, October.
It's probably a Turkey thing. You think about it,
Yeah.
like when in that sense, look, he's wants to be quote unquote creative and
Yeah.
innovative, but him obviously being from Saudi Arabia doesn't necessarily know the cultures of the other places that he goes, but he sees all of these things probably from films or old studies, and he's like, okay, I want to do this, I want to
Yeah.
do that. They've got the money to do it, but he won't really know the logistical sense of it or like the historical context of most of these places, which is why he's talking
Oh,
about
you're absolutely
out
right, Base. And then
things like
who
that.
were the promoters involved? The promoters were one uh, Oscar, who's from LA, which is literally just as far from New York as London is. Right, it's a long flight to
Eddie
get
was the
from
main
New York to
promoter
LA.
in this one.
And,
Frank was
and
the
then
main.
that's what I'm saying. And
Yeah,
then that's what I'm saying. And then the other promoter was Eddie Hearn, who's from England. Like, what does he know? With all due respect to Eddie, I like Eddie a lot. I'm a big fan of Matchroom and their work, but it's not like they've staged outdoor fights in New York City before. Like you would have assumed they would have brought in a promoter like more because I would have never put a fight in Times Square. And I'm not even a promoter. I was not understanding it from the beginning. And I don't want to say I told you so, but I told multiple people that this wasn't going to work the way people were like imagining or I would even say daydreaming it would work.
But I
yeah.
think it's like from us looking on the outside in, Times Square is like this magical place, isn't it? It's about image, it's about the name. Like if you wasn't there, like you're watching it from home. I mean, I've only watched highlights. You wouldn't have known that it was so intimate. You wouldn't have known that it didn't really get that vibe that it should have done because you're just like chilling and watching it at home. I don't know. Maybe they were concentrating on potential pay per view for the bundle event rather than gate
Yeah.
sales. Who knows what the strategy was around it? But it seems like that just didn't like deliver. But like I
Well,
said, there's a hard comparison because of the week before.
there's two massive
Yeah.
goals to this outside of the event itself. The way it was marketed, we all saw the promo video. The promo video was all basically about Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia.
Garcia,
And then
yeah,
everyone else
Yes.
being afterthoughts, except for maybe Tio, who was like a special guest cameo in the in the promo. So you've done that, telling us directly that this is basically what's about to happen next, and
yeah.
now it's not going to. So you look stupid.
Mhm.
And then the other thing, which is like an epic fail, is unfortunately, October brought him up a little while ago about the only person not being there is Tank, but now this is making his resume look even worse. Like his
Yeah,
his
You're
best
right
win
about
just got
that,
Yes,
his
what
Base.
best
happened
win
with
just got beat
Garcia?
by his worst win.
Yeah,
Like it's not, he is literally now the class clown of this whole thing, and he wasn't even involved in it. I almost feel bad for him.
mm,
But, but also, I remember that there was a video clip I saw afterwards, which Floyd did from ages ago, and he said, "Hey Ryan Garcia, I'll pay you 100 grand if you beat Rolley, but if you lose to Rolley, don't ever mention Tank's name again."
serious.
Yeah, I see a video clip of Floyd saying that, and yeah, he's got so now
Yeah, but
Ryan.
that happened before. Obviously, they
Yeah,
fought.
before,
He
So
said
yeah,
it was a
yeah,
rerun.
yeah, but someone brought up an old clip, and I was like, rotted. So, but I know you're saying it makes his resume look bad, but Tank's clapped out these guys that people are rating, which the other guys haven't done.
So no, you're right, Danny. So teachable moment October. Let's talk about this. What worked well for the Fatal Fury card in London? What didn't work well, and what worked well at the Fatal Fury card in New York, and what didn't work well? Because you said it. I mean, these were kind of the two lead off events for this whole Ring Magazine promoting boxing
Yeah.
kind of thing that's been started. What are your thoughts?
I think obviously the lead event in the UK has got historic value to it. The British
Hmm.
public, we are football or boxing. We haven't got the plethora of sports that you have in the US. So we're always going to be at an advantage there. Hence, obviously, the stadium fight that it was. Um, the fights were good matchups on the card, unsuspected with some of them, but good matchups. And this is obviously the UK. But then with America, like Base said, it was the marketing strategy around the Haney Garcia rematch. That's kind of what we thought, because I'm going to be honest with you, with some of the fights, I was confused about who was fighting who. It wasn't like black
Mm.
and white, it wasn't rubber stamped. But like I said, sometimes I have to take a step back because I know I don't watch the American boxing as much as I watch the UK boxing. So I just put it down to ignorance. But hearing Bay say that about obviously the strategy around the marketing, that's your first mistake, isn't it? Um, And I just think the matchups they just could have been better than they were. And obviously, you had a bit of the bad press about people not being able to get access. You telling me that there were basically blinds up, so anybody walking past couldn't have a look in. There's that exclusion that they've got with it as well. Maybe people looking out of apartment, hotel rooms and watching it from aerial, unless it was covered over from the top as well. I don't know. But it was anticlimactical compared to the week before. But then they pushed straight over to obviously Saudi, Riyadh, back in the kingdom again for the secondary, not ring, but obviously the secondary fight that's linked to Riyadh season.
No, it was a ring.
Oh, it was ring as well.
Yeah.
Oh, both. So it was a
Yeah.
third event.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll tell you what's a little confusing too. I was confused by this. I don't know if anybody else was, but before all of the matches, they're like showing the ring belt. Um,
Shout
even
out
before
to
Chris
Ade,
Eubank,
the whole
even
week.
before the Chris Eubank Jr. Conor Ben fight, they had the ring belt on display. I thought that was a little confusing, but
What did you
so
hear
they
him
had
out?
that. They had the Fatal Fury belt, but yeah, definitely a much better event in the UK. Just watching it at home, they were much better events.
Yeah, real talk.
Hmm.
So we step over to Saudi, the third installment, the bundle price. We could, in fact, I want to know what the cost was in America, because in the UK you could buy both fights as a bundle for £34.99, which was a reduced amount from what it should have
Yeah.
been, which I think was £43.99, something along those lines. So we was offered a reduced bundle price. I didn't buy it because I just watched the highlights. What was the
Here it was two for $80. October.
I thought it was two for
Both pay per views for $80.
It was
okay?
an 89.99.
There's something along. I'm pretty sure it was, yeah, maybe when they threw in fees or whatever. I'm pretty sure it was 80.
Taxes, maybe
They
taxes.
even gave me a fight poster for it that had $80 on it. So yeah,
Yeah,
Compared to cards usually, that's still cheap because that's like $40 a card.
60 £60.
So,
yeah,
which in comparison to your usual prices that you pay, that is still reasonably cheap.
yeah. Because that would usually be the price of a Canelo pay per view.
There you
Or
go.
if you're like Danny and you're really excited about watching Morel Jr. and David Benavidez, the same price for that pay per view too. EBC loves that pay per view price.
So, would you say that
So
the prices were reasonable then
not just
for
Danny, me too. Reasonable.
what you
Well,
got?
to discuss reasonable, we got to go into the card and what you guys felt about it.
That's what I'm saying. Did you think
Because
reasonable?
here's the thing, I'm old school. I'm an 80s baby. I grew up in the 90s. So I remember when Oscar would go from a pay per view fight, and
Mm,
then the next fight would be on HBO against Steve Forbes.
okay.
Like, this is that kind of a fight. Like if this was in the 90s
It
or
would.
even in the early 2000s, it would have been a regular HBO fight,
Mm,
uh, between a pay per view HBO fight for Canelo. That's how Oscar used to do it, right? That's how other fighters back then used to do it. The pay per view stars of that era, Lennox Lewis as well. People forget Lennox Lewis's last fight against Vitaly Klitschko was not a pay per view fight. It was on regular HBO,
mm,
right? And that fight was coming off of a huge pay per view fight. So that used to be the model. The model right now is everything's on pay per view. So if you want to say what's reasonable, I guess it's reasonable by today's standards.
okay.
Is it reasonable for the 80s baby grew up in the 90s standards? Absolutely not.
Saudi, who wants to talk about that then? Because obviously you had people flying across. We saw Big Frank out there in Saudi. We saw Eddie join in later on. We saw the likes of Anthony Joshua there, the usuals rolling up to Canelo versus Skull. I don't know who wants to run with that. Like I said, I'm literally highlights with this.
yeah. Well, yeah. It was Eddie Hearn took an 18-hour flight.
Nuts.
Look fresh for a man, but I'm pretty sure he had a nice cozy bed on the plane in his. So it ain't like he was sitting, as you guys call it, coach, or for us we call it economy. Um,
Yeah.
For real.
yeah. So, but yeah, I tuned in. It was it was the fight. I forgot what fight it was, but it was the fight before Richard Riakporhe. Um, I think they were like lightweights or something. But so I wasn't really paying attention to that because I was catching up on watching the reviews of Sinners and stuff. People were breaking down stuff, all that deep stuff. But then, yeah, Richard Riakporhe come
Hold
out.
up, hold up, hold up, Danny. So rather than watch the undercard, you watch reviews about a movie you already watched.
No, like the early undercard I didn't watch, but I tuned in when Richard Riakporhe
Okay,
was on. That's when I tuned in. So Richard
all
Riakporhe
right.
came on. He's looking way 235, looking well muscular. His shoulders just the
Bro,
rhomboids. The rhomboids was looking very serious.
bro.
The Argentinian guy
Talk
who
about the delts.
I've seen a couple.
Sorry.
Calm down. I've seen a couple. I've seen the Argentinian guy fight Moses Ituma and Fraser Clark in the past. Went points with Moses Ituma. Fraser Clark made him like retire after about 3 rounds.
In the
So,
corner.
yeah, made him seen him a couple times. He weighed like nearly 300 pounds, like 200 and something
So it was
heavy.
299.
Yeah,
Or was that Bakoli?
Bakoli. So he might have been like 295 or something like that. But he was like near 300 pounds basically. So I thought, oh, this might be interesting. Heavyweight debut. I thought, oh, might go points or something like that. But Richard, he did look a bit stiff, so he might need to trim down the muscle just a little bit.
Okay.
But he definitely he's got that sort of FA and Jagba physique, but a bit more muscular. Good jab, decent right hand. The body shots is very good, and he's always had a good array of attack compared to say Lawrence Okoli, because Lawrence Okoli he literally just sticks his hand out and tries to find you with a right hand. Whereas Richard, I've seen him knock out a man with body shots on at least 4 occasions now, and
Hmm.
to drop a man 300 pounds with that much tire and penetrate to where his organs failed and then take the
Penetration.
knee. Oh my god, grief. You're gonna have to get
Debate, Danny.
I'll
You
go into timeout
disappointed
after
October. I don't know. I
timeout.
don't know if you could tell, but October looked disappointed when you said that he needs to trim back the muscle a little bit.
yeah, maybe like 5 pounds, 5 pounds of muscle. But yeah, made him take a knee. You saw that after the round he didn't want it. He shook his head and he'd had enough. So yeah, good performance by Richard Riakporhe. And the size of him, people we know when he was billed to fight Lawrence Okoli, everyone was like, oh, well, he looks too small because Lawrence weighed in at like
Yeah.
261 or 62 pounds. Da da da. But going by how I saw him there, he didn't look too small there. And if Lawrence comes in at 261, Richard's going to be a bit more nimble. He's got a good array of shots. And Lawrence, I don't know, he's going to have to trim down himself because he's going to need a better engine and stuff like that. So it's made, if this fight does come off at heavyweight, it's made this fight a bit more interesting. But it just goes to show you, it's very mad how, if you look at Lawrence and Richard, so Lawrence on his debut puts on how much pounds, like a proper heavyweight, like 261 pounds. Richard Riakporhe put on 35 pounds, which is 2.5 stone from his last fight. So that just shows you, because normally when you're looking at cruiserweights, you go up to heavyweight like Holyfield, Usyk, Chris Bird, Eddie Chambers,
David Hay.
David Hay. They're not putting on that kind of
They're
size.
just going up to the
Yeah, they're putting on like
actual weight.
yeah, like 215, 217, 220, 225 tops.
Hmm.
So yeah, but Richard, good finish. Yes, the opponent wasn't the best, but yeah, it was a good heavyweight debut in my opinion.
I didn't want to out myself, but that's also why I don't always know the U.S. price perfectly. If you look at Virtuoso's comment, uh, yeah. So in terms of this card, like I said, had to wake up really early Saturday morning. I flew out here to Vegas from New York. I landed, got into a cab, and went directly to the MGM Grand for the Inaway
Hmm.
Cardenas weigh-in. By the time I got to the hotel where I'm actually right now, I had actually missed the first at least two fights, so I didn't see the first two fights. The first fight I saw was the one with the Cuban trained by Eddie Reynoso. That was the first fight I saw. Um, and then I ended up, so I didn't see this fight, Danny, the Rappaport fight, but hopefully I'll be able to find a stream and go back and watch it. Turkey does usually put up these fights pretty quickly, which is something I appreciate that they do. So I didn't see this one. So you can ask somebody else about it. The
The
first
only
one I saw that really I think I want to talk about was the Bakoli versus a Jagba fight.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
'cause
you're gonna crack on.
the rest of the card, I ended up watching tomorrow because after the Reactor fight, because of the day before, I said I'm not losing sleep, so I went bed and
yeah.
watched the rest of the card. So I watched Bakoli, I watched Badu Jack, I watched Canelo, all today this morning.
Was it weird, Danny, having a Riyadh season card in Riyadh start so late? Like, what was the feeling of that over there? Because this is the first time it's ever started this late in the United States. Because usually these fights take place during the day, which is actually usually pretty good.
They did it for you.
well, remember, it wasn't a Riyadh season card; it was a ring card.
They did it
Oh
for
yeah, ring card. Yeah,
But it
yeah.
was
I'm
done
getting mixed up
specifically
with
to
the
accommodate
marketing.
Canelo Alvarez and accommodate his fans. Obviously, he is the draw, and it's to make sure that
Yeah.
everyone can possibly watch and buy it in the states. So, um, I mean, look, if you think about it, technically, it's what 2 hours, maybe 3 hours difference to the cards normally. In terms of like I guess when it finished to when this one finished, a lot of them they finished at like 3:30 in the morning over there. This one happened to finish at like 6:30. They
Mhm.
normally sleep during the day when it's the hottest anyway, and then do a lot of their business from sort of that early evening. So it may not have been too much of an adjustment on that side, and Canelo gets to kind of work within the same sleep pattern he might on the West Coast. So it probably wasn't that big of a transition. The interesting one will be when he actually has to properly do the on time schedule for the place he's fighting, whether it's Riyadh, the UK, or anywhere else, because he says he wants to obviously fight outside of these places. They're not going to be doing the shows at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, especially in those venues.
Hmm.
Yeah. They did it in the past though, if memory serves me well, with Ricky Haddon, right? Because I remember when Ricky Haddon fights used to start regular time for us. So I'm assuming that they would start really late for you guys over there in the UK.
Not that I remember, but you might be right.
No?
Yeah, but then
Okay.
so then going on to the Martin Bakoli FA Jagba fight. Um,
Hmm.
we know what happened last time with Bakoli, etc., etc. But I did think that
Hmm.
Bakoli would win the fight because I thought he's got a better selection of shots, better combination punching, that it would get on the inside and he'd be able to sort of break down Efia Jagba. But Efia Jagba um, landing some good right hands
Okay.
early doors, even buckled the knees of Martin Bakoli. Then started getting on his jab, then started getting on the move using good footwork, which started frustrating Bakoli, where he's like, come on, fight. But he's like, no, he's not going to dance to your tune. He's going to do what he wants to do. So Bakoli couldn't get to him, which started to actually expose him that when you actually move, which Jaron Anderson should have done with such youth on his side, you can make him look so ponderous because he's 299 pounds, so he can't catch up with you. He can't, and he doesn't cut the ring off actually very well either. Um, so he was just following F.A. Jab around, and F.A. Jab was sort of dancing rings around him. Yeah, there was a couple of rounds. I think it was like round 4 I gave him, which was the first round I'd given him, where he pinned F.A. Jab on the ropes and let loose. But he was headhunting too much. Had he had started going down to the body during that combination, he could have sort of wore him out or really hurt him and started mashing up his organs a bit with all that size and leverage. But he didn't. He was headhunting too much. But F.A. Jagba got on his bike, started jabbing him up. Towards the latter of the fight, Coley won maybe like the last 2 rounds, but it wasn't enough. He was just like, come on, come on. Um, and I thought FA Jabba won very clearly, yet they gave it a draw. So I just thought that's some. But you saw Martin Bakoli, he was there just skinning and grinning, happy with the draw because
Never.
he knew he lost. FA Jagba, he just had a straight face, but I thought he should have looked more angry because really he was well up in my opinion. But because Martin Bakoli is this talked about boogeyman, blah de blah. I think they're just trying to save him commercially. Um, but they should. I don't like when they do that because you've got to just call it as it is. That it was an upset and he got beat at the end of the day, so they teethed him. Then we go on to Badu Jack versus Noel McCallion. Now,
Hmm.
Badu Jack is a very good friend of my friend and sponsor Ashley Fearfade. Badu Jack's a nice guy, but he got beat. He got beat. Noel McCallion outboxed him using all these shoe shines, speed punching.
Yeah.
Very good boxer. Listen, Badu Jack has done very well for a man of his age to still be competing at the level he is at, and to the to the level he's been fighting at and still fighting at. But he got
41.
he got beat clearly by Noel McCallion easily. But and it's the second. And the thing is, why I think is bad. Why I feel upset for Noel McCallion
Mm.
is that he'd come off of the off the bench, but he's been teeth before. He got teeth by
Twice.
Braiders.
Twice. Twice.
He got
By
teeth
with
by
who?
like when he fought Marius Braiders in the World Boxing
Are
Super
you
Series.
joking?
And what it was, I was trying to show somebody this fight today, and they've scrubbed YouTube of the whole fight.
You
Try and
joking?
find this fight on YouTube, you can't find it.
I knew you were coming, Danny.
Not even highlights. They're not even there's not even that little 3 minute highlight section.
I've heard that they do that stuff.
They've scrubbed it.
He won. He won that fight.
Yeah,
I agree.
they teethed him. So I'm
And he
like,
won last night too.
yeah, so that's I've seen him get robbed twice. I'm like, rotted. This is bad. So yeah, but we know that they're trying to set up the Badu Jack versus Japa Thai fight because commercial names, etc., etc. But I'm telling you, I would want to see Japa Thai versus Noel McCallion. They need to rebuild McCallion somehow because this McCallion guy can fight. He will
He
give.
can, but Danny, can you explain to me how the guy that was more active walked into the fight as the champion in recess or emeritus, and the guy who hadn't fought in over 2 years walked in as the champion? That was like
That was,
confusing to me, and it
who
did.
said it?
I,
McCallion brought it up.
I mean, I can
I like.
explain it, but
Please, I figured you'd be able to. Base explain that one, please,
yeah,
because I
but
know there was a whole thing with Ryan Rosinski and whatever, but.
yeah,
You
no, no,
think that champion emeritus status would have been given to Badu Jack,
he
who,
was.
yes.
Yeah, look,
So, but
basically,
he,
what happened was,
yeah,
right, McCallion was the champion.
Mm.
He was supposed to fight Ryan Rosicki, pulled out of that fight on
yes,
three separate occasions.
Ah,
So when he pulled out of it on the third one, basically they just gave Ryan Rosicki the chance to do an interim status title in his next fight. So he then became WBC interim. McCallion
yeah,
had the
in
WBC.
Nova Scotia,
Yeah, and they told him he had to fight Badu Jack, who was the champion emeritus at the time. He then said that he didn't want to fight him. Something about he was waiting for a bigger fight or something. So they said, okay, well, if you're not going to fight the emeritus champion and you're not going to take that order, then we're going to make you champion emeritus. We're going to upgrade him back to full champion because obviously he
okay.
already held that status from before. So they
Right.
just did the role reversals, and then it came down that when he was supposed to fight supposed to fight Rosicki, Rosicki got injured, and then McCallion took the fight. So that's why they basically was reversed. So
mm.
it's Noel Gavor McCallian's fault why he was champion emeritus getting into the ring.
His fault or Don King's fault?
Well,
Because if you listen to him, he wanted to fight.
well, the thing is, you say that, but he whether it was him or his team, he pulled out of the Rosicki
Yeah.
3 times in a row. So
Mm. Mm.
Yeah,
All right, thank you, Base. I figured you'd be spot on at that one. I appreciate it.
no,
no
thanks.
So, yeah, in terms of the Bakoli fight, uh, I mean, I agree with everything Danny said.
Excuse me.
Uh, he was Japa was bossing him with the right hand. He was making him pay with it. When he was coming forward, he was using the jab both as a range finder and as an authoritative jab. He was rocking his head with the jab at times. There were some moments later on where maybe his legs got tired and he was a little more stationary, where Bakoli was able to do a little bit more work. Um, you mentioned going to the body, Danny, and the fact that he was headhunting more. Maybe it was because he was trying to keep his guard up a little bit higher, and to not get countered by a Jagba's right hand, which was very effective. Because I too would have liked, if I was in Bakoli's corner, I would have liked him to see him throw way more body shots than he actually did. But I felt that Jagba won that fight. And when it comes to Martin Bakoli and his career, I actually picked him to lose this fight, and the reason is because he's a clinically obese fighter. Like, I'm sorry, you should not be weighing
Oh,
300 pounds in the neighborhood of that,
I'm glad you brought.
and talking about competing for heavyweight titles or being a heavyweight contender. Like, your 40 plus year old father of three should not be looking better, better at the gym or in the shower or wherever else than a guy complaining or purporting to be a legit heavyweight contender. His physique, guys, I'm just going to say it, for a professional athlete, for a heavyweight contender, is embarrassing. And when someone is in that kind of shape going into fights, and even if he didn't have notice, like he didn't against Joseph Parker, he's a professional athlete. He should be in better shape than this, even between camps. But apparently, he had more time to train for this fight, and he was still really heavy. And it's like, I actually like Martin Bakoli. I've met him, Billy Nelson, nice guy. I just don't understand being in this type of shape, right? And you see it in the performances. It's like, Danny, you were mentioning not cutting off the ring. How could you cut off the ring? You need to be able to move laterally. You need to be able to move forward quickly, side to side quickly. You can't do that when you're weighing 300 pounds. Like, you are going to be a plotter at that point. And, in terms of changing levels, moving to your opponent, being in positions to land body shots, like, you have to be in shape to do that. Otherwise, what you're going to do is put your hands up, plod forward, and, flick out the jab and the right hand and trying to wrap punches around the high guard every now and again, which is what he was trying to do. If Bakoli is going to be serious about his career moving forward, he has to get into shape.
Yeah,
He really does.
here.
And that's my opinion on that one. And I agree with everything you said about the Badu Jack fight. I do not think he won that fight. I thought he did very well for a 41-year-old, especially a 41-year-old who's been out of the ring for 2 years.
Mm.
But I don't think he won that fight, right? And you know, I, what can I say? It's hard because it is multiple times now where there's been that bitter pill to swallow. But yeah, I don't think that Badu Jack won that fight.
Yeah, and the only thing I would say, what I'm disappointed about Martin Bakoli, he's had all right. Fair
Yeah.
enough, he got the short notice thing, so he came in at his walk around weight. All right, but you had a training camp. So from that last fight, you're telling me you've only managed to lose 11 pounds.
Behave.
Come on, and you're a full-time pro. This ain't like Josh Padley who had to go to work, 5 days a week, etc. You're a full-time pro, and all you managed to do is lose 11 pounds. And you probably did that winding your waist in the gym whilst recharging.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's like he's making a joke about his physique. He's like belly dancing and shit. Like, I mean, but Danny, you mentioned the walk around weight. Can we ask the question? Why is that his
No,
walking around weight?
I know it
His
is.
walking around weight legitimately should probably be about 270 pounds
Mm.
max.
Hmm.
He should be getting down to about 245, 250 for his fights, max. I mean, I respect George Foreman and his career. Maybe I'll go out and get a George Foreman t shirt as well. But George Foreman never, even in his 40s, wasn't approaching numbers like this,
Yeah, yeah,
or body composition levels like this.
But then
When
you
we're
have,
talking muscle to lean muscle to fat ratios, like, you go for it, October.
yeah,
He's
but
got to get into shape.
I agree with you. When I saw him on the scales, I was polite in my tweet. I thought he would have looked a little bit different to how he looked. I think I can't remember who I was speaking to the other day, but they were saying, "Oh, who do you think wins?" And I said, if Bakoli is in shape, he will be okay because he's very clinical on the inside. I like his inside work, but if he's out of shape, the win belongs to anybody else except for him. So I agree. We don't need to go on any more about him. He needs to work on that. I think his coach, fair play to Billy Nelson. He's clearly not impressed as well because we could see that he's usually quite vocal on X, but he was sort of like saying I expected better and whatever as well. So he's got to, like you said, Maestro, he's got to go away and have a serious word with himself and how seriously he's taking this sport. Because just because you're a heavyweight doesn't mean you can turn up fat.
Hmm. Do you know what I think?
Yeah, and the thing is, his best performance, or at least most notable performance, was against Jared Anderson. He was already heavy for that one. I remember he was wearing like one of these
He's still
waist belts, but he's been way heavier for these last few fights
mm,
than he was for that one.
Yeah. What might need to happen? Boxing might need to take a little play out of Mr. Dana White's book, where the heavyweights there
Yes,
must be a weight limit. What's it like? Two
265 weight limit. Enforce it
well,
yeah.
you
in the heavyweight division.
you're easing into Dana White, which I think we'll be covering. Obviously, you've got to do Canelo Skull, but we're going to be
Yeah,
pushing over towards potentially TKO boxing. His Excellency and Dana White hosting the fight between Canelo and Terence Crawford. But obviously, I know there's Skull and Canelo to talk about before that. But I think that'll be the final piece that we'll do because I think we're running up to about an hour.
Yeah, well, first of all, but just before that,
real.
Jaime Mongia,
Yeah.
Bruno Saras.
I did.
Bruno Saras. Yes.
Yeah, that was a good performance. He looked improved under Eddie Reynoso. He seemed to use a couple looking Canelo moves, slipping and sliding, and good combination punching. So well done to him for that. Um, yeah, I'll let Base take the main event. Oh wait,
Forget the main
Can
event.
I
I
can I
even
make a
spoke
quick
about the
comment on that
undercard.
one though first?
Wait. Let me have my time to talk, people. What's going on here? Relax. Okay. First off, FA Jagba Martin Bakoli. I actually saw
Yeah,
it a draw, so I disagree with both of you. But I do think if anyone was going to win that fight, it should have been a Jagba. But I
yeah.
scored it 5 rounds apiece. I gave basically, but what I said was Bakoli won 3 rounds, but a Jagba gave him two. Like there was 2 rounds where a Jagba basically one of them he sat on the ropes, and obviously took even though he was fighting back off of the ropes, but he was getting outworked on the ropes. So he gave that round away, which I think was the seventh, if I remember correctly, or possibly the eighth, and then the 10th round. So I gave Bakoli the second, and I know if you give a Jagba that second, then it's 96-94. No real complaints there. But yes, in terms of Martin Bakoli, he doesn't take it serious. And he even gave away the game plan. If people remember what he said at the end of the Jared Anderson fight, he goes, well, he tried to fight me. He shouldn't have done that. He should have tried to box me and he may have had more success. So that already tells you that he knows against people that can move, people that can jab, he's going to be all at sea, especially at those higher weights. I don't think it's appropriate to not give Billy Nelson a whole bunch of criticism on that side. Yes, you can't baby the guy, but you know what he's doing. So you're complicit in him being 300 pounds or 310 pounds. And if we're going to be totally honest, brutally honest here, even though he's dropped a little weight, Billy Nelson ain't in the greatest of shape as well. So you know they both love a roast dinner and a seconds and a third helpings on the dinner plate. So in that
But the base, isn't he going to Congo between fights? I don't think Billy Nelson is going over there with him.
he
Because
goes
that seems to be where he's putting on the weight.
he goes to the Congo. It's not all the time. Like he's there sometimes, then he's back in Scotland. But either way, you're supposed to be. He's your primary charge, right? He's the only
Yeah.
real guy you've got at the time that you're saying this is my guy. Now you got React, or you might push him to the side a bit more. But ultimately, he was your guy. You're going to do whatever it takes. You're going to keep in contact. Yo, what are you doing? have you done your runs today? Like you're going because that's the kind of relationship he's put in. He said that he's like this father figure, and that's what Martin says. Yeah, so you're gonna act like that
Hmm.
father figure. So in my opinion, I'm not saying he's
Hmm.
he's totally to blame, but he's not absolved of blame of that. He's letting it happen. Is my point.
Yeah.
Um, with look with Badu Jack and Noel Gavor Michaelian, I wasn't scoring it hardcore, so I'm not going to disagree with either of you. However, I did predict Badu Jack would win by majority decision. And when I was watching the fight, doing the sort of watching it, doing the live scoring, I did slightly edge it towards Badu Jack purely because a lot of his shots were a lot more impactful. I felt like Gavor he was doing a lot of good work, especially early, and I thought he would. But my thing was always that Buddy Jack was going to lose the first 3, 4 rounds. Then he was going to get into it like he always does. He's always a slow starter. And I feel like he started to take over from sort of that fourth, fifth round. And you could see that at that point, Noel Michaelian was looking very uneasy. He was starting to look a bit despondent, was starting to look to the referee for help at times. And I think all of that body language was conveying that he was losing the rounds. And the shoe shine thing, it might work in the amateurs, but obviously when they're looking at that what they say that effective, are you having an impact on your opponent? You could see that Badu Jack for the most part looked like he was having a lot more of an effect on his onto Noel than the other way around. In terms of look, Jaime and Saras, that was basically what the first fight was. It was exactly the same way. The first fight there was just a punch that came from out of nowhere. The dynamics of the fight, you knew it would play out the same way. So that's sort of my thoughts on the undercard. Now we can go to the main event.
I just want to say one thing about the Bruno Saras Mongia fight. I actually don't think I haven't looked at the numbers, so I could be wrong on this. But just watching it last night, it didn't seem to me like Mungia was actually throwing as many combinations as he did in the past. It seemed to me, at least, that the focus with Reynoso and him going into this fight uh, was really about being mindful about that right hand that Suras would throw. You know, you kind of step out to the right a little bit, angle out that way, and then try to wrap it around the high guard. I think they're really prepared for that. I'm hoping we do get to see a Mungia that does let his hands go a little bit more because against another opponent, I really think he's going to have to do that. But it was a good win by Mungia, and he was clearly focused on being defensively sharp and on being really accurate and precise with his punches.
Mhm.
Cool. Right, who wants to talk about that shit show of a main event?
I fell asleep and I had to find a YouTube link to watch it in the morning where they kind of do the thing where they don't show the full picture, but they show angles of
Oh,
it so that the
yeah,
fight doesn't get taken down. I'm sure boxing fans know what I'm talking about when I say that.
yeah.
Uh,
Do you know what? Let
Not a
me let me
very
talk
good
about it then
fight.
because I actually had to sit
Yeah,
through
yeah.
it live. Yeah, so
Okay,
I'll
you
start
talk about it. Yeah,
and you
yeah,
guys
talk
can
about it, base.
look. It was first of all like I understand you need to take use of the advantages. We know that look, Canelo he's getting slower, he's getting older. It's obvious. He wants someone that's going to be able to step forward and sort of come forward and actually fight with him to make it a bit of a fight. So if you can move, you can take advantage of that. That's not a problem. But we had a William Skull for the most part in this fight. That was it reminded me those early rounds reminded me a lot of the fight with Virgil Ortiz and uh what's the other guy's name, the 154 guy champion. Yeah,
Boachuk,
not Barachuk. Madrimov, yeah, it reminded me a lot of
Madrimov,
that
yeah.
in the first couple rounds where there's just non-stop movement, and it's like, okay, you're trying to frustrate the guy, you're trying to just pickpocket, you're trying to steal around. I don't know what's going on here, but it's like, okay, we're walking down. We know what Canelo's gonna do, but it's like there's all this movement, left, right, running this way, staying so far out of range that even you can't get a shot off. Then that's not really the tactic. Is to be You're supposed to move to be able to stop them from catching you, but you can still catch them. Like he was all the way on the outside for the majority of it, like circling, like literally. And there was times you even see him doing. He's doing that little running man in the ring as he's moving to the side, to the like he's almost like it's a dance. And I don't know where the score. There's one score, well, two of them. One of them was 116, 112. One was 115, 113. By the time you got to the,
113.
the sixth round, you thought, okay, maybe he's going to slow down. He's going to have to engage a bit more. And even if he survives, he can put up a play here. But it was just constant. It was movement for movement's sake. It was, to me, it was ineffective. I don't know. Some people said even online. I mean, I saw Shakur, I saw Ray Ford saying that they actually think he won the fight. I've seen Amir Khan said that he thought he won it by two rounds. I don't know how they viewed that, but what I do know is that was worse than the Jamel Charlo fight. It was worse than the Edgar Berlanga fight because he
Yes.
bike as well. And for someone, I guess this is must be his retirement fight because I don't think he's gonna get any opportunities again after this. Not on that big stage. I don't even think you fight him as an opponent because he's just not a fun style to watch. There's no, obviously he doesn't speak English, which is gonna be a barrier in that sense. I don't see how you get him another world title. Like it was just a horrible performance. Canelo's not absolved of blame because you got to figure out a way to get close to him. And if that means, and I was even on the stream saying, look, okay, when Skull's complaining, oh, he's hitting me low, he's hitting me low. He's like, actually, no, he was legit hitting you where he's supposed to hit you, but you've jumped to get out of the way, and as you've
Yeah,
jumped.
he was literally jumping backwards.
Exactly, and as you're jumping, he's where his shirt is supposed to be in your midsection is going towards the bottom of
No,
your
no.
waistband. But that's your fault for jumping. You're not supposed to do that. So
The crazy part, base. Sorry, go ahead.
no, just last thing, and then you can go. All of that, just to
Yeah.
say, I've seen him fight before. I've never seen him be that bad, but he's not a fun fighter to watch. He's not a great advertisement for that Cuban style. There are some guys that are a lot more effective with it than he is. I don't want to see him again. Canelo is looking kind of shot now as well. I think that he'll still be good against people that don't move and want to actually engage. I think he's still got enough for that. But in terms of everything
Oh,
else, wasn't a great advertisement. And again, that's a whole weekend I wish I could get back. The undercard fights were okay.
Well, in a way, is going to save us tonight,
Well,
base.
hopefully, but let's be honest though. In a way, for us, is in a fight that's not seen as a competitive fight. Realistically,
We
no.
also we also have Divino Espinosa on the undercard too,
Again,
which I'm
though,
excited
these are
about.
also people that they're not in fights that we're expecting them to be tested in. So
Yeah,
it should be good in that sense, but it's just going
yeah.
to be a couple of fun fights. The one bad thing about this whole ring experiment thus far, and I guess this just
Hmm.
determines on how you see things. We've had 3 events in the
Yeah,
space of 8 days, all pay-per-views, by the way, on both sides of the pond, which is
yeah.
which is a bad advertisement because no one should be paying that much in such a short space of time. But 3 events, no knockouts in any of them, no conclusive stoppages, everything going points. That in itself is something we also need to have a look
Ooh.
at. But you guys talk about things
So
like that later.
so it's going to be tough for me to defend uh, the quote unquote Cuban style with people like my brother from another, Mr. Danny Glover over there in London, who's very critical of certain performances of Cuban fighters. And if he's pointing out performances like this, there's not really much anyone can say. I didn't give School much of a chance against Canelo. He did have obviously a size advantage, which I saw personally when they did the press conference in New York. I then saw it on TV multiple times later on. But I also don't think that School beat Shishkin. I thought Shishkin won that fight. So, uh, and I don't know if you guys saw that fight, but I didn't think School won that fight. And the style that you describe, base of a movement style, side to side movement to beat Canelo was implemented, I would argue, rather effectively by Erislandy Lara. What was the difference, though? Erislandy Lara would actually, at certain points, land authoritative punches. it's one thing to move around. It's another to jump away, which Landi Lauer wasn't doing. And it's another, or if he did it way less than School did. And Landi Lauer would land effective punches. You have the Cuban style, according to School himself, is the art of hitting and not being hit. Well, you're doing decent at the not being hit part, but you also have to hit your opponent and hit him impactfully if you're going to win rounds against the number one star in the sport. Uh, so it wasn't a very good fight. I actually fell asleep last night. It was a long day for me. Like I said, I had to rewatch the whole thing in the morning. And I got to agree with you, Base. There's not going to be anyone clamoring to see William School again after that performance. Hopefully, he got very well paid because it's back to the German circuit, I'm guessing, against lesser tier opposition, I'm guessing. Uh, Granted, 168 isn't the most competitive division out there, or if it is competitive, it's not competitive with a lot of superstars, I should say. So maybe they will be able to, fit him in somewhere against someone. But unless you're forced into it by a sanctioning body, why would anyone fight William School? So Canelo won that fight last night. William School didn't do nearly enough to win, and especially when you're fighting a guy like Canelo. And I'm very interested to hear what Danny and October have to say about it.
Danny, over to you. Like I said,
Yeah, the main event, and this is terrible, and I'm going to summarize the whole sort of thing so far. But all right. So first of all, you had one scorecard of 115, 113. You had another scorecard of 119, 109. So you have a discrepancy of 10 rounds between judges, which is just absolutely crazy. I think people were giving credit a lot to Canelo due to the fact his name. For instance, they gave Canelo round one, right? Now, in round one, William Skull threw 20 punches and landed one punch. Canelo threw 4 punches and landed zero.
oh wow,
And got
Yeah.
and got. Now, the last time I remember a fighter winning a round and not landing a punch, when it like Willie
Rona,
Pep, when
no,
it no Willie Pep. They
was
said,
it?
oh,
Willie Pep. Yeah.
back in the day that he was so good that he had such ring generalship that they gave him the round and he didn't even land a punch. But I've seen, I now that maybe it sounds good for the annals of history. Oh yeah, the old school fighters, but we've seen what that looks like in modern time. You can't be giving a man a round. He didn't land a punch.
Or he did, but it wasn't. It didn't land in a scoring area. He landed shot in the first round. If you go back or watch it, you'll see he did land, and it was a big punch compared to the jab that Skull landed.
All right, but either way, it's
Clean, effective punching. Ring. I guess you're arguing there for ring generalship if you're scoring that round for Canelo, right?
Yeah, because Skull was run. He was basically moving around, backing off, and not engaging. So you're not going to give him the round.
Yeah.
yeah. Then you had the obviously they said in the end that Canelo and William Skull actually broke the record of Ryan Garcia and Rolley Romero of the total punches thrown was even less at 445 between them, whereas Garcia and Romero was 474. Haney and Ramirez was 503. Now, you've got Canelo Alvarez and William Skull,
Yeah.
Garcia and Rolley Romero, Haney and Ramirez. All three of those fights, total CompuBox punches thrown is 1,422. Now you just go back to
For three fights.
3 fights. Now you go back to last
I
week
was about to say
with Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Ben,
one fight.
1,505. So they've thrown nearly 100 punches more, just them two alone, than six fighters,
Six fighters.
6 fighters. And this is a man who was weight drained versus a man who's having to risk it all against the bigger man. And they're throwing more punches in their fight. Now, I don't know if they're trying to play some kind of old school amateur boxing where it's computer scoring. Because I wanted to name the show semi-pro. Because They're not
Oh,
fighting
this
like
one.
professional. They're not fighting like professional
like
fighters.
the Will Ferrell movie about basketball.
They're not fighting like pro fighters. They're on some fencing business, man. Where they come like, fair enough, you got William Skull who might be trying to take after Mario Kindling, but Mario Kindling's throwing proper punches, man. Felix Savon's throwing
Yes.
punches.
Okay, Danny, thank you so much for saying this because the Cubans have always been known for moving, but also hitting
You
and
got
making you look silly
yeah,
and even hurting you. He
yeah.
wasn't doing that.
He wasn't doing this. And people like to talk about Floyd, yeah? People like to talk, oh, he's running, he's running. Now, you go to CompuBox numbers of Canelo Alvarez versus Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather threw 505 punches. Canelo threw 526 punches in that fight. When you talk about Floyd versus Oscar De La Hoya, Floyd threw 481 punches. Oscar De La Hoya threw 587 punches. When you look at Floyd Mayweather versus Manny Pacquiao, Floyd threw 435 punches, Pacquiao 429 punches. So these men are fighting. Their CompuBox numbers are eclipsing these young guys. I remember Floyd.
Okay, a very important point though there, Danny. That was an older Floyd. That was Floyd at the end of his career in most of
Past
those
prime,
fights.
past prime, and he's fighting,
Yes, past prime Floyd.
and he's throwing more punches than these guys who are meant to be in their 20s. What's going on here? And they're lighter weights. How can you have?
Yeah, it's insane.
How can you have Efia Jagba and
Coley.
big
Big
Bakoli
back.
throwing
Big back.
more big back Bakoli throwing more punches than lightweights, light welterweights. This is a joke.
In their 20s.
In their
No,
20s.
but you know what? Danny, people have been saying this for a while, and I'm starting to agree with it. We have a whole generation of fighters, especially from the United States, in the lower weight classes, who have done their best job to mimic old Floyd, but they're doing it to extremes. So they're not mimicking they're not mimicking Pretty Boy Floyd when he was taking out uh, 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 Castillo and Corrales and Hernandez and all these other guys. They're mimicking the older Floyd who was fighting Andre Berto and everybody else. But to your point, I didn't even realize until you brought out the numbers. They're not even achieving what old Floyd was doing in terms of offensive volume and output.
Oh,
And again, we have a whole generation of fighters like this at this point in the lower weight classes here in the United States. Danny, go for it.
yeah, old Floyd is still throwing double the amount of punches as these guys. So what's going on? American boxing, something bad is happening. I don't know what's happening, and it's gonna be egg on their face if Naoya Inoue comes over there tonight and mashes work and looks spectacular because he can say, all right, you telling me I need to come over here to be a star and I've got to fight you guys, but when I'm mashing. You man are on some joke thing. You man are on some Shakari Richardson, some Noah Lyles business. You man ain't trying to fight. You man,
Yeah,
and what's the point?
Danny.
Hold on. And what's the point of training in Big Bear and having strength and conditioning coaches? These men are making a living. Where's the conditioning? Where's the strength? Come on, man.
Danny, I'm going to add in on it too. I had a kid about a month ago asking me if we could work faster on the pads. And I'm like, how about we just master the technique? Like what I do on the pads with you is what I'm expecting you to do in the ring. You're not throwing an 18 punch combination in 4 or 5 seconds when you get into the ring and fight. So but if you go to social media with a lot of young fighters out in the United States, they're not doing the pad work that Hearns, that Duran were doing back in the day. Look at that old school pad work. What are they doing? They're throwing these 30, 40 punch combinations, but then they get into the ring and it's all it's like, what are we doing here?
Man are doing fadeaway moves in the ring.
Yeah. So I mean, you on the one hand, it's like the pad work is insane. On the other hand, the low offensive volume and output is equally insane. Like it's not looking good right now. I'll tell you that it's not looking good. And then people want to question why all of these fighters from the former Soviet republics are doing so well, and why we've got fighters like Inaway, who, by the way, people are saying needs to conquer the United States to be, a superstar and all that. No, he's already a superstar.
Conquer what?
No, I was surprised he was asked that at the press conference. And maybe it's Japanese politeness. I don't really know. He did say he wants to be very famous and like whatever in the United States. If I was him, I'd say, look, I'm already famous. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm already doing numbers in my country that no fighter in your country is doing. Why do I have to come over here? But in a way, that's not part of his culture. So he's just being respectful.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying conquer what? What is there to conquer? If this is the showcase, come on, man. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Listen, me and Bass are meant to have a spar at some point. We're gonna we will put this behind the Patreon wall or something, and I'm sure we're gonna get more active than these guys.
Really? When is this taking place?
I don't know, but it's gonna happen. But we're
Tony P told me he was going to be fighting too. I want to make sure I watch that one.
Well, me and Tony, we're sorting one out for the end of the month. So
the fact is, we're not full time. And listen, this what I've seen. America needs to have a sit down with their fighters. Turkey needs to start. It needs to start. There needs to be some kind of sanctioning of purse pulling because they're not.
But bro, Turkey's also on camera saying that he wants, black people to get back in the to take over boxing again.
only at heavyweight though. Only at heavyweight.
Oh, only at heavyweight. Okay.
Yeah.
So just to put a nightcap on this, on the one end we've got 50-plus-year-olds trying to date 19-year-olds. That's the old generation, and on the young side of it, we've got fighters that get into these fights that don't want to throw punches. So, I don't know what to say. This is where we are right now. Yeah, at least over here in on this side. I'm in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Right,
Well, and New York City, it's America.
Yeah, I gotta lump in New York with it too, I guess.
October, I think you're muted because we can't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Canelo, Crawford, TKO. What we saying about that?
You know what I'm saying about that. Go on.
Face off in the ring. Why are you so confrontational, Base?
I'm not. I just want
you are. It's just like I'm asking a question. Why you have to pose it back to me?
Because
you do this
don't
all the
seem
time.
to talk.
What do you mean?
I want to hear what you want to say
Yeah,
about
well, I want to hear what you're gonna say. You want me to answer it? You ask the question first. I'm asking it to you.
Go for it,
We're about to get Clarissa Shields and Keith Thurman right here. Danny, set up the fight.
Man, but what I think about it, since everyone's a bit bit tentative to answer, my thoughts on the fight on the card, I think it's good, but I think that what I don't like is that Turkey's basically giving Dana White a through ball of his first pay-per-view, so it's obviously we're predicting this is going to be a very successful card. So Dana's going to come out, oh yeah, look at my numbers, I've just got into boxing, but it's like, hold on, you've kind of been gold plated this card.
That's a great point.
So you haven't really proven anything to me. So I'm not even going to count this on the Dana White resume because this is a Ring Magazine Turkey Al Sheikh card. But I expected to do good numbers. Good to see them face off with each other. Terence Crawford looked the bigger man in there. Canelo's probably broader at the waist, but overall, I think, Terence Crawford has a good shot. He'll probably have a higher output. I think Terence Crawford should come in at about 161 pounds. Canelo, if he's smart, will probably weigh in about 165. Try and get himself a little bit of speed, not coming at 168. But you can definitely see Canelo's on the back burner, and he's there for the taking. And I'm going to give an early prediction. I think Terence Crawford wins on points. Because Canelo's output's been dipping quite a lot as of late, over the last few years. Hence why he's ducking my nephew. Sorry about the background noise. Hence why he's ducking
Yeah.
my nephew. Hold on a minute. Let's go.
I'll continue since while Danny mutes for a moment. Um, Look, you couldn't ask for a better path to a huge fight right now than what Terrence Crawford is getting. We're seeing a Canelo right now who's way less mobile, way less active in the ring, and who just regained the undisputed championship at 168. Although I always considered him to be still undisputed. So if you're looking at a winnable fight and a meaningful fight for Crawford, you really couldn't ask for anything more than this. Danny, that's the first time I've heard anybody make that point. It's a great point. Uh, they're essentially handing a successful pay-per-view, a successful promotion on a silver platter to TKO and Dana White by allowing them to promote this pay-per-view. You would assume that if the guy who's going to take over boxing were to do it using his system and his way, that he'd be doing it from the ground up, not essentially inheriting a system that he's been shitting on and criticizing for the last God knows how many years, probably well over, 10, 15 years at this point. I mean, the whole UFC model and business has been essentially based around shitting on boxing and going head to head with it. Uh, but I do have a question for you guys. At this point, what are we considering the Ring magazine? They're putting on shows. They now have ambassadors making their pro debuts on their shows. And I don't know. Is it uh I don't know what to call it. Is it a journalistic outlet? Is it a PR agency? Is it a fight promotion? Is it all of the above? What do you guys think about that?
I'd call it a promotional hub.
Yeah, for the sport of boxing,
Yeah.
a one-stop shop for reading about it, seeing it online, knowing who the top people in the sport are, etc. Right?
Yeah, let's not forget they're not gonna have like regular shows throughout the year like the other promotions. They're gonna do these little pockets of promotional things throughout, and then they're gonna have obviously the magazines and whatnot. So I just think that it's a promotional hub just to sort of bring the ring and its actual the magazine and the championship back to like the forefront, but to give the legitimacy of that championship to TKO when they start doing their leagues, just so people get familiar with the title and it being the be all and end all.
Got it. I gotta get running. Great show, everyone, and I'll check in with you guys later.
All right.
Same, I gotta go too because they just mash up my whole team, my whole flow.
All right. You go as well. I guess me and October will finish this
We'll
up
finish
and
it off.
battle it out.
Yeah, we'll definitely finish it off. Yeah, I was saying about with the TKO thing. I get it that it's been handed to Dana on a plate, but he's got to run with it. He's got to do it properly. It potentially dispels any myths about lower payments because these are top tier guys that are going to expect top tier money. So I think he's been given a big responsibility to go first, and it's how he pulls it off, how they pull it off. I think the proof's in the pudding with it. Um, I agree with what you tweeted about Canelo. He's been boxing for a very, very long time. He's not what he was. And I do think this is a good time for Crawford to go at him. And I do think Crawford will get the win. So that's my opinion on it. We'll see how it goes. I'm not envious. I'm not going to say, why is he getting that? Turkey's running boxing. He controls the money for it so he can do what he wants. And he is doing what he wants, whether we like it or not.
Okay. Fair enough.
I don't know. What did you think about it? Did you even answer it?
No, I didn't have a thought on it, to be honest.
You weren't bothered.
What I'll say, if I have to say anything about it particularly, look, the whole this particular event is a launch pad
Mm.
to what he's gonna be doing with the TKO League. It's not we can't look at it and say, oh, we see, but he's thought he's using the same model as everything else. No, this is just almost like a one of those springboards. You do this, and then hey, look what we're
There
doing
you
over
go.
here.
Yeah.
Look what you can expect. So I don't particularly look at this one and saying, oh well, everything that we saw now isn't in place. It all seems to be the same thing. Um, I guess maybe Eddie and Frank and Oscar and maybe Tom Brown or whoever's dealing in PBC might look and say, "Well, hold on a minute, like we're the ones that have basically been running your show for the last several years. Like, why is they getting the upper hand and they don't even have a name in boxing?"
Mm,
But that is his new venture. That is his new project. He said that was gonna be what they're gonna do. You've heard Eddie and all of them speak about we've got what they say, we've got some contractual engagements still left to do, and we'll honor our contractual commitments, but you can tell that everyone's gonna start pulling their fighters away, doing their own stuff. And yeah, we'll see how the TKO with the mid tier that they're looking to employ works in the future. In terms of the event, well, yeah, the event is already a guaranteed hit because
yeah,
Canelo generates what he generates immediately. Crawford is now becoming a star. So even just
finally.
off of that itself, you can at least guarantee 600,000 pay per view buys, and then whatever you get on top of that is just about showcasing what TKO will do moving forward. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that the rest of those promoters, even though they probably knew, I doubt they probably will be happy, especially
Yeah,
Eddie with Rick Reno and
yeah,
that situation. So
I agree.
pretty sure he's already in conversations to get onto the other side of that. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
I
it is.
agree. And that's definitely something that I'm going to be asking Eddie when I finally get to speak to him. I'm supposed to speak to him this week, but it was just too hectic. And obviously, like you said, how many 18-hour flights going from one place to the other, so it didn't happen. The only thing that I'm looking out for is obviously we've got the ring now that's owned by His Excellency, which he said is like a hub. You've got the reading, you've got the media, you've got cards being promoted by them, and now we've got TKO. So we've sort of got like another party, albeit they're not media, albeit they're they've not got a magazine, etc., etc. It's yet again another company that's in what I'd say is potentially, I believe, is a market that's saturated. But we'll see how it goes. I'm sure they would have been approaching all of the fighters and specific fighters that they wanted. But to go ahead and have such a big event for your first one, sort of, in my opinion, sets a precedence for this rumor and sort of dispels this low pay rumor that seems to follow Dana White around the place. Because obviously, it's not him that's necessarily putting up the financial collateral for the fighters. So then, will that make it more attractive for the fighters to then go and sign with TKO? I'll be interested to see how it plays out. The business side, and that's the side that I'm interested in.
We shall see.
We shall. Anything else from yourself, Base, or we're gonna lock it off for this evening?
No,
And
do what you're doing.
okay, then listen, guys, thank you all for listening in. Or I don't know, about 100 of you this evening. Don't forget to subscribe to the individual channels. You've got Base the Kid, you've got Danny from Fight Fan TV, you've got Maestro and myself, October Red. Please subscribe to the Fight Talk Live TV. I've got to get used to that. Head back over there. We need to build back up the subscribers on that. We are here more or less every Sunday. It is the four of us usually. If it's not, it'll be three, it'll be two, maybe even sometimes it could be one, but we do try and aim to get the four of us in here. Yeah, we'll be back next week, Sunday. I think, basically, you going to Nottingham?
No, probably not. No.
I was about to say we probably both have content coming out of Nottingham, but it looks like Base isn't going to that one. When's the next event now? Is it Copper Box?
Um,
Trying to think.
maybe. I mean, I'll be there, but uh,
Johnny
yeah, on the
Fisher fight, isn't
17th.
it? So yeah, so we've got events coming up. So just keep your eyes out. Get subscribed to the channel. And once again, I'd like to thank you all for tuning in to our live earlier on a Sunday evening. Take care.
Peace.